Can you walk us through your press release that you just came out with hole 148 and the significance of that for the Northeast Tyro?
It's one of the best holes we've drilled on the property, 66 meters at 6.5 grams. I think the important part is where it is. It's about 250 meters vertical depth below surface. What I think this does for investors is it gives them, this hole at this depth gives investors confidence that that we should be able to deliver the exploration target. And so I think that that is a significant de-risking step. I think investors have to look drill results, resource, drill results. That's the game plan.
For disclosure purposes, our site does not make recommendations for purchases or sale of stocks, services, or products. Nothing on our site or this podcast should be construed as an offer or solicitation to buy or sell products or securities. All investing involves risk and possible losses. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. For disclosure purposes, West Point Gold Corp is a paid-for client on the investorideas.com website.
Derek, it's great to have you back on the show. Our last conversation, we talked a lot about the Northeast Tyro zone and the strong extensions, the high-grade continuity. Can you walk us through your press release that you just came out with hole 148 and the significance of that for the Northeast Tyro?
Yeah, it's one of the best holes we've drilled on the property, 66 meters at 6.5 grams. But what's unique about this hole is not just that it's a really good hole, and obviously we've got some decent ones out there at Northeast Tyro. I think the important part is where it is. It's about 250 meters vertical depth below surface, and that's one of the deeper holes we put in on the property. And so that depth gives us confidence that this thing actually will go deeper to below that 250 meters. And so one of the things we've been talking about, and I think we talked about it last time, is that there was a possibility that Northeast Tyro and Tyro zone would be open after the maiden resource. And one of those directions was to depth. I think we have increasing confidence that that's going to be the case based on these results.
How significant is this depth and width grade that you just came out with this hole, like for the Northeast Tyro as a whole, as you continue out with the project?
We'd seen a few holes a little bit shallower than this that were maybe not as exciting. Still decent grades, but not as exciting as some of the 200 gram meter intercepts we've been hitting. And this is another, on a true width basis, this is another 200 gram meter intercept. And so I think that this just really highlights that the scale potential, right? And the intensity of mineralization. You can kind of see it in the core photos that we show in the press releases. You get what it shows in those core photos, and I'm not a geologist, so I'm kind of parroting what Rob, our VPX, said. But what happens there is that we have a breccia, and that breccia has a lot of energy in it, which implies that actually that gold and that forms that breccia, which is kind of a collection of quartz glued together, is coming from deeper, which means you still have boiling below where this zone hits. That's kind of, I mean, you got to drill the holes to figure it out, and Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate. But this really gives us the confidence that this zone is going to be open at depth. And so I think that, I think we're going to be able to put out a pretty good maiden resource, late Q3, early Q4, once we get all the drill results in. But I think the fact that there's more here at Northeast Tyro and at Tyro in general, I think that's a big opportunity as well.
Does this change your expectations for your MRE coming out now that you have this 250 meters below surface that you're proven with this high grade?
As you know, we had that exploration target out there that 20 to 30 million tons at 2 to 3 grams a ton gold. That works out to kind of 1 to 3 million ounces. And what I'll tell you is that obviously we had 21,000 less meters drilled when we came up with that target. I have about 30,000 to date. And so my feeling is that, with any of these things, you get little and you lose a little in different places. Obviously, getting these kind of grades at depth at Northeast Tyro, that's given some. What we talked about last time, the extensions to the Northeast, that was a positive gain. And in other areas, we might have given a little back. And so that's okay. That's the nature of these things. Mother Nature doesn't work in geometric shapes, unfortunately. She has her own mind when she's putting these deposits in place. And so it gives me more confidence that we'll be able to deliver on the exploration target when we come out with this maiden resource. But, that exploration target was down to 300 meters, and we had expected to be hitting at this depth.
Do you want to talk about what is still to come? I think you have 6,500 meters still assays pending and 21 holes. Is that correct, that are coming out over the next little while?
Well, the drill program is done. The drill results aren't. So over the next little while, we're going to get holes at Northeast Tyro, including 7 holes just around hole 148, which we were just talking about. We have some deeper holes at Tyro main zone. We have some holes from Black Dyke. And so we're going to get a combination of drill holes over the next kind of 3 to 4 weeks, probably through the end of July, we'll get all our drill results out. And that's really going to form the basis for the maiden resource, which is coming in late Q3, early Q4.
Assuming that with this high grade at depth at 250 meters, does this, for you, in your opinion, de-risk the project for you, like, and the potential like valuation, like risk reward, as far as like if you were looking at this as an investor? I know we're biased here, but
Absolutely, I'm biased. But yeah, no, I think that if I look at how we're valued relative to the expiration target, and maybe that's a place to start, I think we're undervalued. Now, again, I'm the CEO, and as you pointed out, I'm naturally biased, a large shareholder as well. But I think we're undervalued relative to that expiration target. What I think this does for investors is it gives them this hole at this depth, gives investors confidence that that we should be able to deliver the expiration target. And so I think that that is a significant de-risking step for our current valuation. And again, I think we're undervalued, but that's neither here nor there.
is there any comparables out near the Gold Chain project that are coming out with these kind of grades, or like, do you know of anything that's even comparable right now? Because like you just said, and I agree, I feel you're quite undervalued with the grades that are coming out.
I would say that these are obviously some of the best holes we've drilled proper, and probably you can make an argument, probably one of the best holes drilled in Nevada over the last few years. But what I would say is that in the Oatman District proper, there are some companies that are active. Our closest neighbor, Arizona Gold and Silver, they've had some good success. But again, my biased opinion, not at the scale that we're having. I think what sets West Point apart from a lot of companies, besides the grade and the depth of mineralization, is the fact that we're going to be able to deliver a maiden resource so quickly. It is an exploration story still, and we have lots of targets still on the property, and there's lots of blue sky potential. We're going to be able to prove that this has the potential to be a mine pretty quickly with the maiden resource coming out in the fall.
Again, with the success that you've had at the Northeast Tyro Zone, assuming you are going to plan your drilling for later this fall, 2026, 2027 into 2027, and focus there, or has anything changed for those plans now with this amazing poll that you've come up with?
The way we've sort of looked at it, the next drilling program, September 2026 to May 2027. We'd always thought, my VPX and I, we haven't finalized this yet, but probably around 30,000 meters is the number that makes sense. Exactly where those 30,000 meters was going, that was a to be determined. Obviously, on our last call, we talked about the fact that Tyro Main Zone and Northeast Tyro are open to the northeast. We drilled those holes out there, that fence that looked really good. And so now we need to step out past that. So that's an area that we're going to look at closing off Tyro Main Zone. This hole, 148, it tells us that this is probably going to be open at depth. And so we'll be chasing Tyro deeper as we continue through this as well next year. And I mean, Tyro remains open to the southwest as well, and the depth in the Tyro Main Zone. So I think we'll be testing out there. And so I think a big chunk of the meters for next year's program are really going to be to define the limits of Tyro. See if we can put a bit more of a box around it ahead of, say, a potential economic study. Beyond that, we've had success elsewhere on the property. We had success at Black Dyke. We had success at Sheep Trail. We need to do some additional drilling at South Tyro. There's a pretty good historic holes at Gold Chain Hill, Red Hill Ledge, which is an extension of Sheep Trail. We've got some good holes that we drilled previously. And then we've got the Frisco Graben, which is the kind of the home run swing target. And so there's going to be a focus on defining the limits of Tyro. There's going to be a focus on getting out the Frisco Graben and being aggressive out there. But then, yeah, we got a bunch of other targets to test as well, and to see if we can, add some resource areas to the project beyond Tyro Main Zone.
Well, it seems like the sky is the limit for you guys lately. So for like investors that haven't or following that haven't seen us before, do you want to just talk about how you're fully funded to run this whole drill campaign into next year, and where you're at, share structure, and all the math fun stuff?
Sure. Yeah, we have 135 million shares outstanding. We have about 20 million warrants that are all in the money. They'll bring in just under $10 million Canadian over the next 12 months. We have $25 million in the bank as we speak right now. And so if we were to go out and drill the 30,000 meters that we've discussed based on everything else, we would finish that drill campaign with about $10 million in cash and about $4 million in warrants left to come in. And so we're well funded for the next drill program. I think that puts us in a great position. That's what makes it an attractive entry point for investors. You're not about to get run over by financing. We're able to be aggressive with the treasury, with the ample treasury that we have, and we are going to be aggressive with that treasury.
I love the story, and I love that it's fully funded at this current moment as the markets have been less than favorable for junior mining or really any sector across the board. Do you want to talk about key takeaways that you want investors or following to pay attention to, and anything that they can look forward to or for the future and over the summer?
As we talked about, lots of drill results to come still, 6,500 meters. That's going to come over the month of July effectively. That drilling is the last of the data that we need for the maiden resource. So we're targeting late Q3, early Q4 to deliver that resource and put it together. Around the same time that that resource comes out, we'll get back to drilling at Gold Chain. As mentioned, we're preliminary numbers are about 30,000 meters of drilling next year. And so lots of news flow to come from that. And then I think probably the other thing to keep in mind is that we're, as mentioned, we're funded for all of that. Everything that I just said, we're funded for, and then some. And I think that puts us in a really good spot to advance the project as is appropriate, as opposed to having to worry about the market as much.
Do you want to talk about like the board or anything, like any of the board additions or Andy, or do you want to like shout out any of that stuff?
We knew we needed to finance earlier this year. We're a pre-revenue company. We always need to finance at some point. And credit to Andy. He's been around. He's got a lot of experience. It's nice having that experience on our board. He's the one who said in early January, if you think you've got money, take it right now, because who knows how long this is going to last. And that was really timely advice. We ended up launching that financing, later in January. We got it closed in mid-February, and then kind of the wheels came off the market at the end of February, right? And so we were able to get money at a really good price, get really good shareholders at good terms in January that we probably couldn't have gotten in March. That's a key piece. Andy obviously brings a lot of experience, but we have a really good board. It's one of the things that I've learned over time is that, you need a strong supportive board, and our guys, Conrad, Brody, and Anthony, and Andy, all are supportive of what we're doing. And I think that adds a lot of value for me as a CEO, and I think also adds a lot of value for the shareholders as well. I think investors have to look drill results, resource, drill results. That's the game plan.
For disclosure purposes, our site does not make recommendations for purchases or sale of stocks, services, or products. Nothing on our site or this podcast should be construed as an offer or solicitation to buy or sell products or securities. All investing involves risk and possible losses. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.